Next, I'd like to welcome Alderman Terry Kennedy, and he is going to talk about local control of the police.
All right. Yes.
Good evening. Good evening. Certainly, each speaker before me has laid the foundation and the justification for local control. Now, local control is not a new animal, nor is it a strange animal in the history of the United States. That is what democracies talk about, local control, where the individuals who live in a community have direct control over those individuals who have the ability and the authority to carry weapons of death. Now, in democracies, it is part of its foundation that that aspect of government should be controlled, or that aspect of a people's life, that aspect speaking about the military, and the police force is a form of military action.
Yes,
it is martial action. That aspect of government should be under the control of the citizens. That it is not controlled by the army or the police itself. That its check is to be under the control of the civilians. Now, the state of Missouri is a strange and unusual animal. We understand that somewhere, and when the Civil War broke out, that the state of Missouri, concerned about St. Louis moving on the side of the Union, took over the control of the police department. This would have been April of 1861. When that happened, and they took over the St. Louis Police Department, they in fact got rid of several officers that they were concerned might be involved in not enforcing the Fugitive Slave Act, as well as a concern that several of the black abolitionists would unite with them and take over the St. Louis Armory. Well, to keep that from happening, from our understanding, the state took over the St. Louis Police Department in 1861 and has controlled it since that date. There is no logical reason that the state should be controlling a police department in St. Louis since 1861. Now, there's really only two major cities like that in the country. That's St. Louis and Kansas City. Stands to reason in the state of Missouri that those two cities, the two major cities, are under the control of the state. Now, what does that mean? That means that the governor appoints the police board. And therefore, you know who appoints is the one that controls.
Absolutely.
That you as a citizen does not have direct input or control over your police department. Then later they enacted several statutes. One of those statutes says that the Board of Aldermen cannot interfere with the functioning of the St. Louis Police Department. And that's the word, that it cannot interfere. And that's a very broad definition of interfering. And sometimes it is defined very broadly. There have been several efforts to get local control. Both the effort of civilian review as well as the direct effort to get the state to release this police department back to the citizens. Again, as I say, this is not a strange and unusual animal. Most cities have control of their police departments. They are appointed locally. Several years ago, we introduced at the Board of Aldermen a bill that would create a civilian review process. That civilian review process included an independent body where citizens could make their complaints when they feel that they had been treated incorrectly by a member of the St. Louis Police Department. That too is not a strange and unusual animal. Most major cities have that as a component of the police department. We did finally get that bill passed after introducing it twice, which made history for the city of St. Louis, that we could actually get that bill passed. However, it was vetoed by the mayor, the present mayor who's in office. Then the St. Louis Board of Police Commissioners created their own version of it, taking aspects of that board bill, but really basically watering it down. One of the major points that you want to have in a civilian review process is independence, where that body that can take those complaints can independently investigate those complaints and make their recommendations back to the police governing body. That whole portion they took out and made it directly up under the control of the St. Louis Police Board. In fact, the way that they have theirs written, that they could get rid of a commissioner on the Civilian Review Board at their whim. To say whatever it is, they can just simply get rid of you when they want to. The other was to push for local control at the state level. And bills were introduced last session in both the House and the Senate at the state of Missouri to turn the St. Louis police back over to the citizens of St. Louis. Now, part of the argument from the St. Louis Police Association was that the city was trying to get control of their pension. Now, this bill that was introduced at the state clearly said that the pension would still remain under the control of the state. But when you're trying to stop something, you raise whatever flag you can, whether there's truth to it or not. That was the propaganda that they took to the various state legislators. However, the bill did pass the House, but it did not ever reach the floor for discussion or passage. So those have been two of the ways that local efforts, primarily pushed by people like you, that walk every day and that are subjugated to the issues related to the police, interfacing with elected officials. Those are two of the ways and actions that have been taken to try to get back control of the St. Louis Police Department, which has been under the control of the state since 1861. Does the work continue? Certainly. The whole discussion about it today is a part of that ongoing development. We must continue to politicize people and help them to understand that you live in a strange and unusual state, that you live in a strange and unusual city, to have your police department controlled by another entity. I usually give the analogy that having the police department controlled by the state is like having a corporation and your major department being controlled by another company. It is not good government. It is not a way to really govern your citizens and be able to control your dollars. That means all of your tax dollars that are related to the police, and that's about 1/3 of the city's budget, you have no input or control over whatsoever. Think about that as we go about our questioning here this evening, but recognize the work continues and the efforts towards local control are continuing to increase, and there are other strategies that we'll perhaps discuss here today. Thank you.